proviso itself, was for comprehensive learning approach for student to master competencies and related standards along a personalized, self-paced, and flexible pathway. So that was the definition in the proviso. It does talk in the proviso about districts making an application, and that it can include in-person instruction, virtual instruction, self-guided learning, and experiential learning through approved off-campus educational opportunities in calculating instructional hours, and that the district may offer the required instructional days at any time during the school year consistent with the law. Of the funds appropriated to the district, we as the department do have to have the criteria and guidelines, and making sure that we are providing an evaluation, a biennial cyclical review, to be able to make sure that we are providing you that information, and that whatever you take a look at and anything you might possibly approve is evaluated and also reviewed in that manner. So just a little background on that. A point of clarification, when we talk about competency-based education, also, nationally, when we look at that definition, a couple of very specific things in this well-recognized and accepted definition. Students progress based on evidence of mastery, not seat time, which you heard in that proviso. Students are learning actively and using different pathways and varied pacing in order to achieve that mastery. And that rigorous, common expectations for learning, which includes knowledge, skills, dispositions. We in South Carolina refer to that as our profile of a graduate and say knowledge, skills, and characteristics. But that those are explicit, that they're transparent, they're measurable, and they're transferable. That those are really important elements when we talk about what are we thinking about when we talk about competency-based learning. So from Lexington School District 3, we did receive an application from Lexington 3 under this proviso. And Lexington 3 is, you can see they're asking for a couple of exemptions that I will go through with you and include why they're asking for those so that you will have that information. The first thing that they are asking for is around seat time. It's the defined program for grades 6 through 8. And then also for their defined program for grades 9 through 12. And again, they are asking for that in order to have flexibility around the way that they would build their master schedule for their middle and high schools. Specifically and more frequently, especially in the beginning, what they're talking about is those high school credit-bearing courses, which, as you know, a couple of those do exist in the middle school, so that's why they're asking for it in both places. But that would allow them to build out a schedule that allows students to advance upon mastery and be able to also engage in some community and project-based learning experiences that, again, in the definition provided in the proviso, would be more of those experiential learning opportunities and some flexible self-paced learning pieces as well. So that is why they are asking for those. The second thing that they are asking for is regarding teacher certification pieces, and this is specific for their career and technology sector. What they are doing in Lexington 3, as you will see in their longer description, they are wanting to, in a very small pilot style approach, begin looking at ways that they can partner with community members and community resources to expand some offerings that the district may not have the ability to fully dive in and create an entire program that would require a lot of capital up front. But if they could partner with a community, be able to use facilities, et cetera, working with those folks to be able to expand those programs and see if that works for their students. They have a couple of examples of what they are thinking initially. For example, automotive tech is one that they do not have in their district, but being able to work with community members to be able to build out that program slowly and do that in a way where even though that is not on the campus and the certifications would come over time, they would be working with the Office of Educator Services and also with the Office of Career and Technical Education through that process to make sure that they are not doing anything to put, for example, Perkins funding at jeopardy, or students at any jeopardy as well. They realized they would need to make sure that they are doing really strong background checks on anyone who's going to have any interaction with students, et cetera. So they are working closely with their community on what that will specifically look like, but can't really pursue it if they don't have the waiver for that. And then the last piece is around the summer reading requirement. And let me explain this one as well. They are one of a few districts that has already actually done this in a pilot mode with the department. They are wanting to not waive the requirements of summer reading camp at all. They actually are going to be doing more hours than is required by summer reading camp. What they are proposing to do is actually start that work early, as soon as they are able to identify children, to begin that work of summer reading camp rather than waiting till the summer and doing it only in a specific 6-week summer program as is outlined in the legislation. They actually want to expand that so that they begin it early, begin those relationships with the families, and then are able to continue it throughout the summer and provide students a much more timely response to that summer intervention for reading. So that is their request on that piece. And again, that they felt like falls in line with the mastery of making sure that all students are mastering the ability to be able to learn to read and do that in a strong way. So that is a brief overview of what they are asking for, and I will pause there in case you have questions or if there's anything I can go into more detail around.
I have a question. Good morning.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
This area is very passionate for me because I'm a retired CTE educator. And so I was glad to hear you say automotive technology, but I was waiting and hoping that I would not hear anything concerning business education. Are they even thinking about doing anything like what I'm hearing described, getting these community experiences and these field experts in that area? I was hoping not. I didn't hear it, so I'm asking.
The conversations that we have had with them, they are specifically, they actually have 2 or 3 students right now who have expressed a really strong interest in moving into that automotive tech, and so I think that is what spurred this. I have not heard anything. They are really wanting to incubate this small rather than do something large, and to see, again, they want to take small steps to make sure that they are not putting anything at jeopardy and that they are doing something at really high quality rather than trying to do lots and lots of pathways all at once.
I appreciate that. I've been sleepless for a few nights, because I was really concerned, and I was glad that you mentioned, and thank you, that these field experienced experts would be vetted.
Yes, ma'am.
So that they would be the appropriate kinds of personnel for our kids.
Yes, I do know that when this went to their local school board, that was something that they presented to their board as well. They want to make sure, again, that anyone that's going to have contact with their students would have those appropriate background checks. And their board also talked about how are we going to make sure that, our folks are also on site when our students are out, and that this is not something that they do not have a really good handle on. So I think that they locally are also very much in tune with that.
I appreciate it. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Are there any
Madam
other
Chair.
questions? Yes.
My question goes to both the applications mentioned decreases in disciplinary referrals and truancy and that sort of thing. Is there already something that shows that that's a reasonable expectation to come from these applications?
So when we look at some of the models nationally of schools and districts across the nation who have moved to more of a lot of times they use mastery-based rather than competency-based, but have moved to a more of a mastery-based approach, Again, what you do begin to see those drops because as students are realizing that they can, what we call compact the curriculum, if I'm able to move through that curriculum a little bit faster, I'm able to then access other pieces of the curriculum that, again, give me access to things that and open up my schedule for me to explore the types of courses that I might find more interesting, which what we then see are students who are more engaged, students who feel like they have more ownership over what that pathway and what that learning is. And so, yes, you do tend to see a decrease in discipline issues in those situations.
But there's nothing in South Carolina specifically yet.
We don't yet, because again, this is our
First
these are the first two that we've had come to us. And so we do not have any South Carolina data around that, other than if we were to extrapolate out. I will say Lexington 3 is working with Furman University, the Riley Institute at Furman. We are already engaged with them. The pieces and the work that they've done to this point to be ready to make this move. Furman is, Lexington 3 is one of the districts that is in a research study, and we are gathering quite a bit of data about student engagement, looking at discipline, looking at student outcomes. And so our preliminary data coming out of Lexington 3 is very promising already, even without these next steps. But the work that they've put in developing things like a learning continua to make sure, again, when we talk about having explicit, transparent, measurable outcomes for students, they've spent a lot of time investing in making sure that their teachers all have a common language, that students and parents have a really strong understanding of what's required and why, and what they are seeing as a result of that is really positive. So again, that research study will not be done until it'll be published in the fall, but our initial pieces look good so far.
Well, and this jumped out at me because obviously this is a big teacher retention issue. So any progress we can make in that department would be welcome.
Yes, very much so.
I did have one question. I know you mentioned on the summer reading camp piece that they'd kind of already been piloting that, I believe. Is it more through after school that they're doing it earlier in the year, or through like intercession days with a modified calendar, or both?
So up until now, they have been doing that more as an after-school. They are a district who moved to a modified year-round calendar for next year, and so they do want to use those intercession times for those summer reading camp pieces. That will be a change from what they're currently doing, but that is how they do plan to do that.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Are there any other questions? I know one thing I wanted to mention for you and your team, I know you go back and forth with districts to strengthen their plan before you ever bring it to us. And so we are very appreciative of all the support you provide and that your team members provide.
Yeah, thank you. And I will say it's a full agency effort. We made sure that we created a process, and I have Dr. Yurda from my office here. She leads this process. When we get an application in, there's a lot of back and forth, and then we actually convene a cross-agency team. So for example, we called the CTE folks in. We had the Office of Certification, and we make sure that any office who may be impacted, that we get their eyes on it. They're the experts, and so we need them to weigh in, and we get great lists of questions, and we meet with the district numerous times to ask for some of this clarification, to say, now tell me again, how do you plan to use this? So that we have a really, hopefully, strong understanding of what it is that they're trying to do, so that we can give you the most information possible.
Thank you for that. I know we all greatly appreciate that. Are there any other questions? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve this request for Lexington School District 3?
So moved. Do we need to do them separately, or can we?
I mean, if we want to wait, we can do them together. Do you want us to do them separately?
I will defer to Mr. Tyler, but I believe that you need to do each one
Tracy apparently has. She
separately.
really wants to tell us.
You need to do each one separately.
Okay,
right.
then,
So
okay, then
I move
make
that
a
we
motion.
approve the application for Lexington School District 3.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, wonderful. Any discussion?
I'm not on that committee, but I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, you're welcome to ask a question.
What kind of assessment do y'all do? I mean, I know you're asking for an exception to seat time and that sort of thing. What kind of exception, I mean, what kind of assessments do you do to determine the effectiveness of what you are doing?
Right, so schools and districts, or in this case, districts, sorry, the district is not exempt from any state assessments. So all of the state assessments remain in place, end of course exams, SC Ready, all of the ones that all schools take. One of the things that Lexington 3 did, if you'll notice, sorry, I'm going to flip to this. Give me just a second here. We asked for them to provide us a table of evaluation measures as well. And so in order to answer your question and talk about how will we know early on, in addition to our typical summative assessments that we give and state assessments that we give. A couple of things that they are going to be monitoring with this. One is our EOC survey data. So the surveys that go out, parents, students, teachers, et cetera, those will continue to be monitored. They expect some very specific questions, climate, discipline, et cetera, to be able to see some bumps and changes there. Again, I mentioned they are working with the Riley Institute and are having a research study done on the impact of this in their classrooms, on their students, what are the student outcomes, and how are we seeing those change. And so that includes actual classroom visits and observational data, as well as interviews and things with students and parents and teachers. And so that's going to be a really comprehensive study that we'll be able to look at some outcomes there. A little further down the road, they expect to see some bumps on things like they use MAP, which is a interim assessment, and so they expect to see that. And those scores, again, on those state testing. A little bit further on, as Mr. Walters mentioned, they are monitoring things like their referral rates and their grades. They're looking at things like student absences. They're also, I will say, they're really focused on their community buy-in, and so they're doing these community listening sessions so that they can really hear from parents, hear from the community, hear from kids themselves and teachers about what's working, what's not working, what do we need to continue to consider. So I think they're doing that in a really thoughtful way. So I think they've got quite a few things that they're monitoring along the way, not just the summative test scores, although that is clearly the thing that they are hoping will move. They just know that won't be the very first metric to move.
Thank you. All right, we had a motion and we had a second. Any more discussion or questions? All right, hearing no other questions, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll move right into the next one.
Okay, and so the next one is from York School District 1. And this is going to look really similar to you as we talk about this, and there's a reason for that. I will say one of the approaches that we took as an agency to this proviso and to our way in which we decided to support districts was we created the ability of districts to come together monthly if they were interested in working on an application, to have support from our agency, from multiple folks within our agency so that they have some thought partners as they did this work, but also that they could connect with one another and learn from one another and share. And one of the things that came out of that, Lexington 3 and York 1 are very similarly situated districts. They have a very similar size and feeder patterns, et cetera. And so what happened is these two districts really worked closely with one another, the leadership in both districts, to talk about, they found that they were both there for a very similar purpose and had very common goals. And so as they worked to develop their applications, they really did that in tandem. So what I'm about to show you with York 1 is going to look really familiar, but in a way I think that is, that speaks to the power of networks and connections across our state. And so I will bring that to you. So again, York 1 is asking for, for their exemptions, they are asking for that seat time waiver, again, both for grades 6 through 8 and grades 9 through 12. And again, that purpose is for them to be able to do some work with their master schedule so that they can look at the types of courses, the length of courses, et cetera, that they're offering, and giving students the opportunity when they have mastered and are ready to move on, that there's room in the schedules to be able to do some really unique and creative things for kids to again, open up those pathways and give them access to courses that they may not otherwise have been able to access. So that is one thing that they have asked for. The second thing, very similar, you will see the career in tech and the certification questions. And I will go ahead and mention theirs is not automotive tech that they are looking for. They are in York. They already have a partnership with the York Electric Cooperative around a lineman program where their students come out and they're actually certified as linemen. And that program has sparked for them some interest and ideas of ways in which they may be able to think about other similar community partners and really be able to take that program to the next level and offer their students the ability to really get out into the community and get that hands-on work as a lineman so that they come out with that certification and they're ready to go right into the workforce. So they're looking at that and similar types of career pathways for students in those situations. So that is something that they are looking to do. And then very similar to Lexington 3, they are also wanting to use their intersession times to begin that summer reading, what we now call summer reading camp. They're wanting to begin that summer, that reading intervention, immediate, and make sure that it is continuous, not only through the summer, but also throughout the school year so that they are working with children outside of that it's not going to be just a 6-week time period. They're wanting to do that, calendaring it slightly differently. I will say, again, they looked at their calculations and they will be serving their students for more hours than their 6-week summer reading camp hours would have typically been. So they're not asking to do less with their reading intervention. They're just asking to do that on a slightly different calendar, if that makes sense.
Wonderful. Right.
So I will pause
Does
there
anyone
for
have any
you. Yeah.
questions? I know it was very similar. We may have asked all of our questions earlier. Okay, are there no other questions? Okay,
One thing I don't understand is how children, learn in terms of absorption. I mean, it seems like you're actually concentrating more data, more information in a shorter period of time rather than having it spread out in the summer months. That's one element. And the other element is the staffing that most districts have, being able to provide staffing for the ancillary programs through the year. I mean, are you sure they've got that covered with adequate qualified staffing?
They do, yes, sir. They've done a number of study committees in their district. Both districts have done this, but in York 1, they did a series of study committees. They actually also surveyed their teachers to talk about when we think about that scheduling piece, and they felt like they could actually have more consistent and actually more teachers were willing to opt in if it wasn't a full straight 6 weeks in the summer that they had to commit to. It gave those teachers also a little bit more flexibility. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting coming out of their conversations with our conversations with them was they felt like this actually gave the certified teacher who would be working with a smaller group of students the ability to connect with the families of children a little bit more, because this is going to be spread out. And so there is that relationship piece that they felt like was going to be stronger, and that ultimately would be a positive for both the students and the families, and that it takes this intervention and makes sure that students see this as we are going to just continually work on this and make sure you get, there's a lot of research about the high dosage tutoring approach, that's the approach we're taking, as opposed to we're going to wait until summer and have you come in for 6 straight weeks. their community really wanted to try a slightly different approach to see if that could also shift the perception.
Thank you for your questions, Mr. Harrington. Any others?
I'd just like to make a comment. Having had an opportunity to see this work in another state, the thing that is so great about this is that it is student need driven. And I think that's what we're all after, definitely.
Thank you, Ms. Allison.
Do you have a
Yes, we
quick
agree.
question?
Yes, go
I
right ahead.
too think it's a fantastic idea to offer this opportunity for students that want or need this opportunity. But I do have a question regarding seat time waiver. Should a student, he have or she have to move away, go and join another district during the course of the semester? Will that seat time that's been waived, how will that be accepted into another district, or how will that be? Will a student lose any credit hours or put them back regarding graduation or anything like that?
Yeah, they will not. So one of the things that is really helpful around our uniform grading policy is we have some really good and strong guidelines around, I mean, already, we get students who move to South Carolina from all over the country and quite frankly, all over the world. And they come to us from lots of different places with lots of different systems. And we have policies and guidelines on how do we handle that and how do we credential that and how do we make sure that we are doing right by students and making sure that we are not having them go back and start something over just because they're coming from a different system. And so we do fortunately have really strong guidance from the uniform grading policy for that.
Thank
The
you,
the
Ms.
first thing
Shaw.
I thought of when you said that is that now we're going to have more athletic waiver hearings.
All right, any other questions? Hearing no other questions, do we have a motion regarding this request?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the York County School District 1's application request.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Frierson. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then that motion passes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. For our committee members, we would like to add our 2 approved items to today's consent agenda. Do I have a motion that we add PL1 and PL2 to the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Frierson. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those items will be added to the consent agenda. Is there any other business to come before our committee today? Okay, hearing none, we stand adjourned.